definitely. Ready, everyone?
Ready!
Ready!
Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl. I noticed that Aardman has been in a sequel mood lately, bringing back many of their beloved characters to give them a second feature and another chance to create a new big adventure with them. They did it with Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon, which is equally as hilarious as it is charming, and another example of how movies with no dialogue can still be great. They then did it with Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget, which I was honestly disappointed by. I love the first, but this one felt like they were giving it the Little Mermaid 2 treatment by rehashing the plot of the original, but make it about the protagonist's daughter.
You know, she is a lot like you.
And next up is not just the studio's most famous creations, but also the most iconic duo in stop motion, Wallace and Gromit. I've already mentioned this before, but I'm a big fan of the two. And if I have to pick my favorite of their works, while A Close Shave is my favorite short, my choice overall has to be their first feature, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. In fact, I've done a review of that film and I consider it to be a masterpiece. Seriously, if you haven't seen it yet, please do so. It is wonderful.
Ho ho ho! Very cheeky.
And with the hype of their return also being their second feature, I feel cautiously optimistic about it. Yes, I'm excited to see them back, especially with the creator Nick Park directing the film alongside Merlin Crossingham, but there is a small part of me that is concerned if they end up repeating the same mistakes as Dawn of the Nugget. Well, at least Zachary Levi won't be in this to make things awkward.
Oh, that looks so bad.
So now that vengeance is being served, will this movie be as appetizing as cheese and crackers? Or is this a feature most foul? Let's find out. The story. It's important to note that even if this is Wallace and Gromit's second movie, that doesn't make this a sequel to The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Instead, this is a follow-up to their second short, The Wrong Trousers, as the villain, Feathers McGraw, breaks out of his zoo prison by hacking Wallace's new invention, the Smart Gnome, so that he could try to steal the blue diamond again, and, like the title implies, get his revenge upon the two who foiled his plans.
That's vengeance. Most foul.
As it continues the story of the short, it is true that there are some similarities that can be found in terms of the story. Not just with the penguin attempting to take the diamond again, but also with Gromit's life at home being disrupted by the newcomer and taking his human pal's attention away from him, and Wallace's latest invention is used for evil after it was manipulated by McGraw. Technically, it is one of those sequels that is a bit dependent on copying elements from its predecessor in order to create its story. However, unlike Dawn of the Nugget, the movie doesn't feel like a complete rehash of the original. Yes, there are some likenesses, but there are also enough material to make it its own plot. With the additions of the Smart Gnome and the police officers on the case, not to mention how this is a movie that presents what happened after the 30-minute short, the story is able to stand on its own and be more original instead of just giving us something that feels like another Wrong Trousers.
And if you think that's progress, wait till you see the next thing I'm working on.
And yet, this is still a Wallace and Gromit project, and as such, it requires an element of suspense. They play a big part in making the shorts and the first film great with its unique style of storytelling, and the same can be said with Vengeance Most Fowl. They not only emphasize the threat that the gnomes became and how Feathers' return will cause trouble, but also result in the movie to be more engaging, maintaining that element of surprise where the suspense keeps the viewer away from knowing what's going to happen next. And as the film gets closer to the end, That unpredictability aids the climax to become increasingly intense as the action becomes bigger with the duo trying to stop McGraw.
Bullseye!
Reset mode activated.
But while there are some moments that can feel freaky, especially for kids, the film balances that out with an equal part of comedy, which makes it continuously funny throughout. And along with knowing how it gives the audience a good laugh after every scene, the way it doesn't fully take itself seriously gives it a lot of charm to feel like an overall fun experience. It even collaborates with the suspense to make the delivery of some of the gags better.
The robots! They're taking over the world! They'll destroy us all, I tell you!
But what I think is the most admirable part about the writing is how the storytelling is solid in such a short amount of time. Its length just passes to be considered a feature with a running time of a little over 70 minutes without the credits. It's no easy task to develop a strong narrative for a movie with that limitation. The only criticism that I could give to that is the way people turn on Wallace did feel sudden. For a while, the inventor was considered to be a hero of the town for stopping Feathers McGraw and were impressed by his smart gnome. But one mishap later, and the memory of his deeds seem to be all gone as they form an angry mob who considers him evil. Maybe that could have been improved with a better transition of the people feeling betrayed by him to make the plot spotless.
Oh!
I want a refund!
Right, your gnome's done with me bathtub!
And where's me glasses? Oh, they're on me head, ta-da!
But while there are a few problems, they're all relatively minor that they can be considered as nitpicks. Other than that, the story hits all the right notes to keep it engaging from beginning to end and make it a great new addition to Wallace and Gromit's adventures. The animation. Just like Wallace's inventions, the work that the animators at Aardman put into the film is both crazy and admirable with how elaborate it presents itself just to accomplish the simple task of telling a story. It has many of the familiar elements you'd expect from the Northern English inventor and his dog, but like his mind, it always comes up with new tricks that pushes the limits of what the medium can do.
I told you we'd find a way to pay the bills, lad.
What's great about Aardman's animation, especially on the Wallace and Gromit films, is the way that they fully embrace the medium of stop motion. With the exception of some effects like water, fire, and smoke, almost everything in the picture is handcrafted, and not afraid to go all out to display the artist's craftsmanship. The settings are a great example of that to show a regular Northern English town, but also make it feel alive with implementing as much detail to the backgrounds to show that the characters were doing some work in there, from the police station, to Feather's prison at the zoo, to Gromit's garden. It's one of those films where you can feel captivated by looking at just one frame where there's so much to see, yet they all work together in this one picture. At the same time, it's also one of those films that unapologetically presents the materials they literally used to create the movie, where the characters maintain that signature Nick Park design that makes the Wallace and Gromit style recognizable, but also display how they're made out of clay. The puppets themselves are very well built, and they still keep their shape as they move, but take a closer look and you'll see some of the smaller detail where they literally have the animator's touch with the large fingerprints on their bodies and the holes in their eyes to move them around. In an age where computer graphics is so commonplace, it's not every day that you see a new animated movie show off that everything you see is mostly handmade.
Oh, a Wallace onesie. Oh, that's champion, that is, Norbot.
And when the characters get to move, the cast is very playful with presenting their personalities. In fact, the more minimalistic and subtle they are, the more impressive their animation is. Of course, Gromit is one of the most iconic modern silent characters, with his body language and his eyes expressing everything that he needs to say, but now there is the additions of the smart gnomes with their robotic nature, yet their behavior can change to show whose side they're on, And Feathers McGraw, whose face is completely static, but similar to Gromit, is still able to show how evil he is.
So what's inspired you to create this handy device, Mr. Wallace?
Oh, I've always loved inventing, making things that help people.
And to top it all off, they didn't just go all out with the smaller elements, but they also did the same with the scale. Part of the reason why they were able to pull off implementing so much detail is because the sets are huge, and the size is noticeable in the film. They're not just to show how big the town is, but also to highlight the size of the adventure. And when the time is needed to use the scale to capture the mood of the moment, it takes advantage of it, including the eccentric tone with Wallace's inventions all around his house, and during the climax to, again, make the scenes feel more intense as the danger also gets progressively bigger. You can always count on Aardman to provide some excellent stop-motion animation, but when it comes to their personal projects like Vengeance Most Fowl, that's where their animators let out the most energy to show off their masterful talent. The characters. As a follow-up to The Wrong Trousers, most of the characters are familiar faces who return for a new escapade. However, fans have noticed that there is a different name who is now prominent in the cast. After Wallace's original voice, Peter Sallis, retired from acting and passed away in 2017, Ben Whitehead took his place as the official actor of the cheese-loving inventor. He was already voicing the character prior in smaller projects like commercials and video games, which you may have heard before.
No doubt they'll come to heel once they've a proper roof over their heads. I'm sure everyone will give generously at the fair this weekend. What the weekend? What am I talking about?
But Vengeance Most Fowl is Whitehead's first major Wallace and Gromit project as the character. I know that not many people like it when beloved characters have to switch actors, and when they do, fans will notice the difference and go on the internet to scream out,
"You fat bastard!"
However, Whitehead's performance as Wallace is virtually identical to Sallis, not only capturing that cracking Yorkshire accent, but also that naively absent-minded personality that makes him a charming character over the decades. It's not easy to find someone who could flawlessly match what the original performer did with a famous character, but Whitehead is one of the best examples of how a professional imitation can be nearly perfect.
See how embracing technology makes our life better?
But to go into the characters themselves, as I've said before, a lot of them are the same personalities that you may remember from the previous films. And yet, they still find a way to use their familiar traits to make this very enjoyable. This is definitely the case with Wallace and Gromit themselves, who also provide the heart of the picture. While their dynamic can be dysfunctional at times, as Wallace can get so into his new inventions that he can't see how things can go wrong, while Gromit is more level-headed to help get his friend out of the problematic situations that his creations cause, they still have a strong bond, and it's the reason why they're capable of pulling through whatever issues they find themselves in. In fact, that's a big part of what makes the movie charming. Their actions, no matter how flawed they can be, are out of their love for one another, wanting to help each other in their own unique way. And in the case of Vengeance Most Fowl, this bond also comes with a subtle commentary about our dependence on technology, as Wallace is so caught up with the marvel of his new smart gnomes that he doesn't realize the downsides of how it can negatively affect his community or even Gromit. It's not straightforward or in-your-face about the matter, yet it presents it in an amusing way that helps the story and the tone.
Well, go on, Chuck. Why don't you put him through his little paces? He's voice-activated.
While this doesn't follow the Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Officer McIntosh from the movie does come back, now promoted from a constable to a chief inspector. As he's close to retirement, he mainly trains a rookie in the force, Mukherjee, to become a real officer. In terms of their personalities, while still can be enjoyable in their own right, it's the familiar trope you'd expect with a master-apprentice duo, With Mukherjee being more ahead in the game while still learning how things work in the police force, and Macintosh as the old bumbling cop who was easily distracted by his personal duties.
The upstanding citizen who helped put Feathers behind bars? Yeah, hey, why not? You catch one supervillain, doesn't make you a saint, does it?
And then there's the return of the notorious villain, Feathers McGraw. In a way, there is a simplicity to him where he takes on the same role as before. A criminal mastermind who wants to steal the blue diamond. Sure, the fact that he cannot speak or emote with his face does limit him, but again, what makes him memorable is how he could still be a serious threat even with those limitations. He can be dangerously clever and will stop at nothing to get what he wants, and this time, it's not just the diamond. He also wants to destroy the lives of the duo who put him behind bars, even if it means to literally do so. Some could say that the characters pretty much do the same things that they've done before. Yeah, there is some of it that's true, but that doesn't make it a bad thing. They brought back the familiarity that we all know and love from them, and also offer something fresh to make their personalities feel new and delightful to experience, especially under the different circumstances that they found themselves in this. They are back, and that's part of what makes this great. Vengeance is a dish best served like this movie. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl, is Aardman's greatest film since The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It brings back everything that made Wallace and Gromit so iconic, and also provides some extra elements and updates in order to create an excitingly amazing animated feature. The writing is fantastic with the way that it delivers a highly engaging story, effective suspense, and comedy that makes this hilarious, along with masterfully crafted stop-motion animation, and characters who know how to deliver the charm as much as they do with the laughs. I highly recommend that you watch this movie, especially with that short running time that makes it convenient to experience the picture for yourself. Yes, it does help if you're already familiar with Wallace and Gromit, or just saw the wrong trousers before watching this movie, but even if you're a newcomer to the franchise, this is still worth seeing, and a great way to have a first impression of the duo. And if this review gave you a good first impression, then how about giving this a like and subscribe to my channel? You can also support my videos by joining my Patreon so that you can help me invent more cracking videos like this. Once again, Wallace and Gromit prove that they are two of the masters of stop motion. And that is why I'm giving Vengeance Most Fowl the Animat seal of approval. It doesn't take a smart gnome to see how Wallace and Gromit's second movie is absolutely brilliant.
Well, well, looks like you've made the cut, Norbert. Better take a bow.
Bowing!